Welcome back to the NerdNest podcast. It's me, it's Rich, it's Russ. It's been like weeks now since we've actually recorded an episode. And for everybody out there who's unaware, first, I was changing my studio, so it had nothing to do with these guys. I couldn't record because my studio was in a shambles. And then the next week, my second grandson was born. So it's just been like crazy stuff happening around here, and so we haven't been able to do the show for a couple weeks. So thanks everybody for being super patient and allowing me to take the time off for that. But guys, I'm excited to talk to you because I haven't talked to you guys in ages. Russ, what's new, man?
Oh, for me, it's just all same old, this is a time of like travel, in the summertime and whatnot. So like, I think it's totally cool you missed it. And congratulations on your grandson. That's super awesome.
Thank
too.
You.
Right. But yeah, just for me, I'm gearing up to go to Germany next month for about 2 weeks. And so I'm trying to just get really ahead on videos and stuff. I'm failing miserably. I'm just like staying afloat at this point. But I do want to get like 3 videos ahead so they can drop while I'm gone. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that my big break will happen in early September.
I believe in you. I think that you can do it. And I look forward to watching those while you are in Germany. What are you going to Germany for? It's for like a con, right?
Con isn't the right word. So it's basically like, so when I first started my channel, which my 4-year anniversary was the other day, right? There was this other channel that was out there called RG Geek. And this was a guy who had made just like off the cuff, like, hey, I bought this device and it was very similar to mine, that kind of thing. And so we chatted and stuff, both really small channels. He kind of stopped posting, but we've always been talking over the years. I don't know how this works, but he basically has an abandoned train station, not abandoned, but just an old train station that's like, he uses as headquarters for like other things that he does and stuff. So every year he does this like retro gaming weekend. I know this is starting to sound like hostile or something, but so he has this retro gaming weekend that he does. And he's always invited me, and I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to go across the world to play Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo, but sure. I don't know. This year I was like, let's actually just do it. And so my wife and I are going, and so we're going to go to that retro gaming weekend. It's called Ludo, Ludo. And I mean, it's only got spots for like 20 people, and I think they're already full. I'm not really sure. I think there's like day passes available. But essentially, it's just like people getting like together to play retro games, and it's not a con. It's just like 20 people, but it's still, it's just kind of hilarious that we're going for it. And my wife's never been to Germany, so we're going to do like a bunch of museums and stuff. And then also we're going to Amsterdam on the trip. She used to be a flight attendant, and through Northwest or KLM was their partner, and so she used to fly from New York to Amsterdam all the time. And so I've never been. And so she's going to take me there to kind of see all that stuff. Anyway, long story short, it's not a con, but yeah, we're definitely going to be there.
It may not be a con, but there's like a whole webpage and everything. So like, are they going to stream any of this? Is this like, you're a special guest? It says so on the website. So
I mean,
clearly it's
people
important.
might turn on their phones or something, but there's still like, there's nothing. Yeah. I'm going to take some video and maybe make a trip video out when I get back and stuff. But it's really just like a fun little way to kind of hang out with this guy. And another YouTuber from back in the day, his name was Mash Tech. He's coming to, he's German. And so like, so it's like, I'm going to hang out with like the OGs for a weekend. It'll be kind of cool.
That's awesome.
That sounds very cool, man. Rich, what have you been up to, man?
A lot of work, like day job work. But otherwise, playing video games. I played the new, we'll talk about what I played, but it's fun. I'll just say that.
You know what? Why don't we just jump into that after finish what you've been doing, and then let's talk about what you've been playing.
Yeah, I played the new Doom 2, and I was working on a video, right? So I was talking about Doom 2, and I said the only thing like more surprising than how often this has been released and re-released is how often they've been good. Right? Like,
yes,
every like Doom 2 re-release recently has been amazing, and this one is no exception. So this time it's by Night Dive Studios, who brought us Doom 64 to PC, so and other retro shooters as well, right? They do, this is their bread and butter, is bringing retro shooters to modern sensibilities. And yeah, this one is great. It's got like, I haven't tried the split screen yet, but it has like 8-player split screen, like local.
Jeez.
Right. It has a cool co-op mode where like, if all the players die, then you lose the level and you have to restart. But otherwise, you have to like find a safe space to hide so that your teammates can respawn, stuff like that. Yeah. What else? Oh, the mod browser is pretty nice. So you can upload mods from the PC just to their like thing. And then other people can download them, of course, on the PC, but also on other platforms. So you can download the mods from the mod browser onto the platform. So you can play cool, like total conversion mods like Wrecker. Probably not Batman, right? Because of the IP there. But Wrecker is pretty cool. You play like a Viking warrior and you get a bow and arrow to start with and you collect souls.
Great.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
Yeah, you do? Okay. Yeah, that one's really good. So yeah, I've just been playing that, just messing around with it, and it's a lot of fun. Oh, and it's, if you already own Doom or Doom 2, then you already have it in your library.
Yeah, I already had it. Happen. Go ahead, Russ.
I was going to say the same thing. I this morning, because I saw it was on the list that you guys had tried them out, I was like, let me just see. Like, and it was there in my library waiting for me. So I just installed it super quick and played a level, and it was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read I read is a strong word. I skimmed the webpage where they were talking about it, and I was like, oh man, this sounds really cool. Let me go buy it. And then I did a search on Steam, and it's like, in your library. I was like, hell yeah, that's awesome. Yep. So I fired it up, and I played a bunch yesterday. And then this morning I finished Doom 1. And I just started playing Doom 2. I'm like on the third level. I did hop into some multiplayer, not like local, but like some online multiplayer. I don't like the online multiplayer because, first off, the dudes you're fighting against move so fast. Like when you are playing against people, they are zipping around the screen like absolutely insane speeds. You know, the same speed that you can move. But when you're playing single player, the demons are just like slow, lumbering, easy to hit. Yeah. The game is really, really fast, and playing against other people is also really, really fast and hard to hit. Plus, I feel like the maps are like, there's a lot of verticality, not verticality like as you're playing, but verticality like when you look out, there's a lot up and a lot down.
Yeah,
for you to be shooting against people. And because Doom was originally like you would play on your arrow keys and the control button would be your fire button, it feels really strange when somebody's like way up high and moving fast. I want to use the right stick to look at them to aim, but you don't do that in Doom. And multiplayer for me is really hard for me to get into. Did you play any of the multiplayer, Rich?
No, but I would, when I do, I'm going to start with the co-op because that's what that stuff sounds fun to me. So I'm going to jump right into the co-op.
Yeah, it has 16-player co-op. Is that what? I don't understand how the hell that even works.
No idea. I can't wait to find out. Yeah, and for the multiplayer, like the deathmatch stuff, they did add like 25 community maps, so now like it's 43 maps in total. I do remember playing like multiplayer back in the day. It wasn't like when it came out. It was sometime after where it was. I don't remember. Maybe it was a source port or something like that. But I remember trying multiplayer deathmatch, and yeah, I had a similar experience. And same thing with like Quake, right? Like it was too fast for me. I didn't really get into like shooters, like competitive shooters, until Counter-Strike, and that's about the speed I can handle, I think.
You know, I actually have a story that you just reminded me of the original Doom, and like a buddy of mine and I both owned it, right? And we lived in different towns. Like we went to college together, but we lived in different towns. And we were like, wait a second, we're supposed to be able to, like, this is supposed to have like the ability to play online. And so, not knowing anything about like computer networking or anything like that back in the day, like we tried dialing each other's phone numbers to try, like, with the like we would put it into the modem or whatever, and we would dial and nothing would happen. And we were like, I don't understand what we're doing wrong. And then, but the thing is we had to hang up the phone. Like, we had to hang up and then call, like, did you see me? Like, I tried to connect. So we're like, okay, and we're going to try again. And we would hang up the phone, and like he would call me or I would call him, and then we would have to hang up, and we never got it working.
I'm sure.
Because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. This is back in like the BBS days, you know? So it was really, really early days. And it was like on a, I don't know, 9600 baud modem or some nonsense, but
yeah,
I don't know. You're right. This release is unbelievably good, and I already owned it, so what an absolute win. Russ, you been playing anything?
Yeah, so besides trying out Doom, I've been going back to some of the old ones, like two stories. The first is I've been playing Halo Master Chief Collection. A lot of this had to do with that. I set up Bazite on my ROG Ally X the other day, or a couple weeks ago now, and so I wanted a game to just kind of test out with, and so that was a perfect one to kind of match between the Steam Deck and that one. And it's crazy. Like, I haven't played the original Halo since, like, on the original Xbox. It's been a long time, you know. And, you know, it's gonna have the updated graphics and stuff with Master Chief Collection and stuff. But there's a button you can press. You press the select button, and it'll toggle between the two. So you can look at, like, OG Xbox graphics or the enhanced ones, and you can cycle between them anytime, and it's pretty amazing. Well, I was playing it, and I was in, like, one of the underground levels. I was, you know, only maybe a third of the way through the game. And I play through the whole level, and then I get out, and you know, you go out, and there's like another area and whatnot. And I didn't realize it, but I was playing in the old school mode the entire time. And so, and I didn't know it. I just accidentally hit it select at some point and then played through that way. But then when I'm outdoors, I hit it again, and it was amazing how good it looked. Like, I was just, my mind went back to 2001, and I'm like playing it in the old school way, right? And I push that button, and it's like the 2001 version of me who just saw HD for the first time. And I'm just like, holy crap, like, this looks so good, you know? And it's actually not that great by today's standards, you know? But like, I was just so amazed. And so I had this weird, like, I was back in time and experiencing it the way that everyone else, like, when they first saw it remastered, like, I had that moment in 2024, which I thought was kind of hilarious. And so I had that moment with that one, and, you know, the game holds up. It's fine. I wish I could aim down the sights sometimes, but it's just the way it is, you know? And then I've been playing Hellblade. I went back to that one. I've just been dead set on playing Hellblade 2, you know? And so I got to finish the first one, and it's been like 8 years at this point. Another funny story with this one is that I didn't realize it, but there's only a certain amount of achievements for the game. There's only like 10 achievements for the whole game, and all but one of them are just full on story based. Like, get to this point and we're going to give you some gamer points, basically, right? And it comes a point, like about halfway through the game, where they just start throwing them at you. And so you'll be like, oh, this is my achievement for playing the game for another 5 minutes. It is now 60 gold points, you know? Like, it goes to insane levels where I'm just playing and I'm like, I can't believe I just got 90 G for that, you know? So I thought that was kind of funny. It reminded me of the old school days. I don't know if you guys did this on Xbox 360, but I used to use GameFly, and I would rent these games through the mail, like, you know, Netflix back in the day. And I would get games like Avatar: The Last Airbender. I was gonna say,
wasn't Avatar the one?
Yeah.
Where you're like, yeah.
In 5 minutes, if you just spam the A button, you would get all 1,000 gold, and it was amazing, you know. And so, so that's what it felt like. It was just kind of this old school, like, Xbox 360 era achievement hunting, basically. And so I've been enjoying that. I'm almost done. I'm in Helheim now, so I'm like gotten to, and it's weird because that's the first thing you see when you play that game. You see like the little like bird-looking tower thing, and you're like, I need to get in there, and it takes you 3/4 of the game to get in it, and now I'm in it. And as soon as I got into it, I saved it, and I haven't gone back. But that's the next thing, is I want to go through that.
Can I say it's not a hot take. It's just something that no one else mentions, and I feel gaslit because I'm like, there are so many similarities between Hellblade and God of War 2018, which came out like less than a year apart, right? So obviously there's like the Norse mythology, right? But then there's both games don't cut, right? Like, both games keep just the same, not the same, but, you know, they don't cut, right? Like, it's just
single scene.
Right, exactly. Both games have like this tight behind the back slightly over the shoulder camera view. And obviously God of War's combat is like a lot better, but they both have this like slow, like lumbering sort of combat feel.
Yeah, timing based. Yeah.
Exactly. And then they both have like this long journey, right? Even though the game Hellblade is much shorter than God of War, it's like exactly like you said, like I have to get to there, and then you spend the entire game getting to there, right?
Right.
So like they just feel so. There must be a name for this phenomenon where like because it happens all the time where like two things release at similar times and they couldn't have been influenced by each other, but they feel so similar, right?
Like Deep Impact and that Bruce Willis Armageddon.
Exactly like totally. That. Yes, exactly like that. So Hellblade and God of War 2018 are that for me.
Yeah, I know, I see that. And the thing with Hellblade that I don't see with God of War, though, is that Hellblade constantly reminds you that you're playing a game. Because it's like, when you have to get from one puzzle to the next, you just realize, oh, this is a game. The developer is trying to get me to do this thing. Like, it breaks that, like, kind of just experience. And that it's like, I need to stand on this little tiny pixel in order to unlock this and look in this direction to unlock this thing. And it's just very gamey and annoying, you know. It's even the combat is like that. Like, okay, you're gonna throw another enemy at me, but this time he's got a shield. Oh, what am I gonna do now? You know, and it's it's like very gamey focused. Whereas God of War is like, I am Kratos and I need to get to this spot, you know, and that's like you're living in it. And so there's just this difference there. And Hellblade's fine. I'm just stubborn, and that's the only reason I'm still playing it. Otherwise, I would have abandoned it 8 years ago, you know, at this point. But
if you feel it's fine, I'm curious, why are you like dead set on playing 2? What about 2 is attractive to you?
So it has nothing to do with Hellblade. It has to do with the developer, and it has to do with Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, like we talked about before. I love that game. That game goes in an entirely new direction by the time you get to the end game, where it just like... it throws everything narratively. It just throws everything on its head. I don't want to give any spoilers here, but it is like full on like, hey, everything you thought about life itself is different than what you thought throughout this whole game. And I love those kind of endings. Assassin's Creed 2 had something very similar to it, where it's just like they just turn it on a loop and they're like, oh, you want to learn about Adam and Eve? Here we go. You know, like they just completely blow everything wide open. And Enslaved did that too. And they earned so much like merit from me from that experience that I just want them to do it again. So I'm hoping that maybe at the end of Hellblade or at Hellblade 2, there will be just some crazy thing that happens, and I want to see it basically. And that's it. I don't think it's happened. And you know, the other game they made was Devil May Cry or DMC or whatever. I never played that one because I was like, I don't know anything about this lore, and I don't think they're going to do any crazy stuff like that. And so I skipped that one, and so this is my next one basically.
That's fair.
That's funny. I have a similar story to you when it comes to Halo Master Chief Collection. I don't remember when it was, but it was recently that I played I had never played the original Halo. Like I played it a little bit on my friend's Xbox, but I didn't own an Xbox, so I didn't get to really play it. And I had the Master Chief Collection on Game Pass on my Xbox, and so I loaded that up, and I was actually streaming it at the time, and I hit that button, and I saw that difference, and I can't remember if I went from like the good graphics to the crappy graphics or vice versa, but I remember that my reaction was, oh my god, that's so different. I think I was on the good graphics and I went to the crappy graphics, and I just like started laughing at how bad it looked comparatively. Like on stream. If I can find the clip, I'll see if I can find it, and I'll throw it into the podcast, or I'll forget, because that's what I usually do. It will show you the OG graphics in real time. Oh my god! That's hideous! Oh my god. Wow. Holy cow, that is crazy. But that game holds up real well. I know that you said you felt like it held up pretty good. I think it's fantastic, and it was one of my. I beat it. I don't beat games ever, so like I went all the way through it in like a weekend. I think that game holds up incredibly well. And if you're like me and you didn't have an original Xbox and you have Game Pass, you got to give the original Halo a shot. The second one, I jumped in and I didn't like it because I didn't want to play as the alien. I just wanted to play as Master Chief. And so
they righted you.
I know everybody hates me for saying that, but
No,
as
no,
soon
I was
as
saying they rightened you. They pulled a Metal Gear Solid 2 on you.
Oh, right. Well, anyway, they did that, and I immediately stopped playing because it just wasn't as fun. So I missed out on all the other Halo games except for those in Infinity. But anyway, it holds up incredibly well. What were you going to say, Rich?
The one thing that I'm not going to say it doesn't hold up because I didn't like it at the time was that one section of the game where like every room looked the same and you were just doing the same. I forget what it's called, like the pillar or something like that. It just was so repetitive for like 30 minutes. It was terrible.
Oh, where you're going like up and down?
Yeah, I think so. I want to say so. I remember
like
purple.
There's several different levels like that in the first Halo where it's fetch questy or just kind of you can get lost pretty quickly. The crazy thing is that toggling between the good and bad graphics is super helpful because often on the older version, like they just didn't have a lot of characters or sprites around. And so you can immediately see, okay, that's where I need to go because that's the only thing that looks different than everything else, you know? And so that makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, like it wasn't until really Halo 3 where they got a lot better about pointing you to where you need to go next, you know. In Halo 1 it'll do it, but you got to wait like 10 minutes of being lost, and then they're like, oh, you probably want to go this way, and it'll show you a little orange arrow or whatever. And so that's why I think it just doesn't hold up as well, because I still get lost in that game even though I've played through it, I don't know, half a dozen times.
You know, I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the show. How do you guys feel about the yellow paint thing? Like there was a controversy last year.
I think it's a funny discourse. I'm not mad at it. I don't. So like, yeah, signposting is hard, right? Like that's number one. I think it's one of those things where like it would be better if you can get away with not doing it, right? So it's the same thing as like a tutorial, right? Like it's better if you can get away with not doing it, but some games just kind of need a tutorial. Like it's okay. It's not a big deal. As long as you're not like overly whatever with it. So like Resident Evil 4 with the yellow stuff, to me that was fine. There's a game coming up soon, I think, where the signposting is like optional. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that?
I understand what you mean, but no, I've not heard that.
Yeah, it's like the yellow paint stuff, but you can turn it off. I don't know which game it is. I'll find it, but yeah, there's something coming out soon where you can do that.
I'm all for the yellow paint, but what about you, Russ?
Yeah, same thing. Like I need to know where I'm going, like, and I want to be able to just like, I like not necessarily yellow paint, but like a button where I can click on the right stick and it'll like show you where you need to go next, you know. And so I like doing that, like or like in Horizon, Forbidden West and stuff. Like it has all that. You can just click on the right thumbstick and it'll like kind of beep for a bit and show you exactly where you need to go. I appreciate that kind of stuff, and I use it in every game that has that feature.
Yeah, I was playing Doom 1, and obviously there's no yellow painting or signposting or whatever, and I was just running around, and like there's a map, but you can't like really scroll around on the map. Like you hit Y, and the map comes up, and you can see like the area immediately around you. It's a very rudimentary map, and I just could not find where I needed to go, and I just kept going around and around and around in a loop, and I couldn't find it. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I ran into the same issue where like I'm in a cave with Barrett, and all throughout the game there's signposting, very obvious signposting, but in this one area it wasn't obvious where I was supposed to go, and so I was just kept wandering around, not knowing what I was supposed to do, and I felt like that wasn't respecting my time. So I prefer that they do the obvious signposting, especially with modern games, because in older games you're like, oh, the color of the wall's different, that gives me a clue. But a lot of times you're just like, you're just wandering until you find it. However, I like the idea of what Rich was saying, where, you know, give people an option to turn off the yellow paint or the signposting, and so everybody gets to have the experience that they want. I think that sounds awesome.
Yeah, the recent Prince of Persia Ubisoft game, I forgot what it was called. Yeah, Lost Crown has an option in the beginning. You're like, do you want to explore or do you want us to tell you? And you just choose in the beginning, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I think in that game I chose to just, I'll do it. I'll figure it out. Don't tell me anything. And I think I chose like the hardest everything, like the combat, because that game is nice with all the options. It has like combat difficulty. It has like puzzle, like what you're saying, like exploration. So yeah, I like that.
The other game that I've been playing is I got it with the Humble Bundle. Has like this ridiculous Lego bundle, and in like it's $15 for the bundle, and you get 19 games, but you also get a coupon for 85% off Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, and I ended up picking that up. So for like $22, you got all of those, like almost every Lego game. There's a few that aren't in there, but what a fantastic deal. And I loaded it up and started playing, and I'm, going through episode 4 with Princess Leia, and I just got down to Tatooine with R2 and 3PO. And it's a Lego game, but this one feels a little bit different because you got like over the shoulder shooting and stuff.
Yeah.
Like you pull the trigger and just aim down sights and stuff like that, which is a nice reprieve from what in the past was just like walk up to a thing, press X a bunch of times until it turns into pieces, then hold down B until it builds it up. I think that I'm super early in the game, but I think that they've done something to make it feel a lot less like the Lego formula, which I was a little tired of. I still ended up buying the bundle because it was just such a ridiculously good deal. Did either of you guys pick up the bundle?
Yeah, I got the bundle, and I've had Skywalker Saga for years. I honestly think that's the best Lego game that's ever been made. It is super good, and you'll find as the longer you play it, it is super diverse. So there's like X-Wing scenes and stuff. It's some of the best X-Wing like flying levels that I've played, just bar none. Like it is really well done. And yeah, I agree. Like the over the shoulder like shooting mechanism just feels really good and just feels more enhanced, And so yeah, I think it's probably the best Lego game. And I did pick up the bundle, but it was only because I was missing like 4 of the titles, and then I gave the rest away to my Patreons. But yeah, it was just like totally cool to be able to pick up that bundle. I think it's totally worth it.
Very cool.
Nice.
All right. Well, that's what we've been playing. Let us know what games you guys have been playing in the comment section down below that like button if you're watching on YouTube, or if you are listening on your favorite podcast app, then head on over to youtube.com/nerdnest, and you can leave comments down there since you can't really comment on podcasts too much. But let's move on to the news. And I want to really quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's so weird, but we've got this leak of like patents that Valve is working on some kind of new wireless technology or wireless protocol for transmitting information back and forth between 2 devices. So basically the way that it works is they generate the frame on like the main device, the thing that's probably plugged into a wall that has a lot more power. And when it generates that frame, it also has like pixel data included and subregion data included. And then they ask your head mounted display, where's the person looking? So there's obviously foveated rendering happening here. And then they render that subregion at a higher resolution and then transmit everything back to the head mounted display very, very fast. But because they're reducing the amount of data that needs to be sent, which would make it more reliable. This sounds really cool, though, as somebody who doesn't particularly like strapping a thing to my head. Like I bought the PSVR 2, and yes, it has an issue with not having enough games, but also when I go to play a game, I don't want to get it out and plug it in and put it on my head and move my coffee table out of the way and all of that other stuff that always stops me from playing VR. But this isn't just useful for VR. It's useful for a lot of stuff. Rich, did you have a chance to look at this this patent, and what was your take on it?
No, I didn't look at the patent in detail. I just saw that it was a thing. And I thought that was interesting, especially like the foveated rendering, right? Because I was also thinking about like the timing, right? Like this is the timing is not related. This is just coincidental, but it's interesting to think about the fact that we learned of this patent just recently, just as PSVR 2 has come to PC, right? Just the last few days. And that doesn't have like foveated rendering. So it was like, oh, it would be cool if like Valve could implement their own solution for like third party headsets that allowed you to still do the foveated rendering, even if it wasn't like supported in that specific way. I think, it's the same as it goes with all this stuff, right? Like this, if it happens, it's probably years out. It feels very much like I'm becoming the guy with the stick that's like, Valve, do something. But at the same time, Valve has done a lot, right, in these last few years with the Steam Deck. So at this point, I know they have like a lot of buns in the oven with Deadlock, the other game that we'll probably talk about soon, the potential VR headset, whatever they're doing with Steam Deck 2 and Steam OS. So they have a lot of stuff going on. So I'm just gonna let them cook, and when they're ready, I'm ready.
That makes a lot of sense. Russ, you have a VR headset. You have the Oculus 3, right?
Yep.
Yeah, or Quest 3, whatever they call it
Quest
now.
3, yeah.
Yeah. Is this like, how often do you actually use it?
Not often. That's
It's a loaded
I
question.
got it for Christmas last year, and my plan was to make a video about it. I'm like, oh, let's do emulation on this, all this kind of stuff. And then just things fell apart in March with emulation in general. It's an Android-based device. And so there was a fork of Citra, the 3DS emulator, that was being worked on. And there were a couple like early builds available and whatnot. So you could play 3DS games on your virtual reality and see everything in 3D as well, right? Sounds amazing. But as soon as Citra closed down, the developer's like, I'm not touching this anymore. And so they just stopped. And so a lot of my energy like went out at the same time too, when that Citra VR thing just kind of stopped updating. So I still haven't tried it. And so, yeah, same with you. It's like, I don't have to move a coffee table out of the way. I got a pretty big space right here, but it's just that little step of like, well, you got to stand up and set your area and all that kind of stuff. It's just a little bit more than grabbing a Steam Deck.
Yeah.
I didn't watch this video I'm about to mention, so maybe it doesn't actually make sense. But Chet Falasek, who was a former writer for Valve, sorry about the noise. I think he wrote for Portal. He has a YouTube channel, and I watch it from time to time. He has like various Valve topics. This one's not a Valve topic, but the title of the video, it caught my eye yesterday, and I think it's relevant, is do you have a one game console? And I'll say, I don't know if I have a one game console, but I'll say I've bought consoles in the past, like because I knew I wanted to play a specific game. And if I get more than that, then that's just gravy, right? Like I just know I just want to play this, even just a Switch, right? Like Breath of the Wild, that I would have been perfectly happy with Breath of the Wild for the Switch. And if nothing else great came out, then fine, no big deal. And so I just bought PSVR 2. And basically I bought that for Half-Life Alyx, right? Like if Half-Life Alyx is the only game I play, then that's great.
Yeah,
So,
same with me. Like that's the one game that like I was really interested in when it came to VR, and so I have it just set up with streaming with the Quest, so you can buy this like streaming app, and so you essentially stream it from your PC playing Half-Life Alyx onto your headset. And I've played that. It's one of those games where I'm like, this is it. This is exactly what I want to do, and I totally will do it someday, and then I don't. So that's where I am.
So have you not beaten Half-Life Alyx then?
No, like 20 minutes is all I've played at that point.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I'm like, I can't wait to play this, and then I don't.
Yeah, but then you don't. Yeah, fair enough.
did you, Rich? Did you buy the PC dongle yet? Has it arrived? I haven't been tracking that.
I did. It has, but I haven't hooked it up yet. So I just haven't had the time. I'm looking to set it up tonight. I definitely I'm hoping that a lot of these games that I want to play, I can just play sitting down, because like at my desk, it would be nice if I can just plug in my headset, like put on my headset and just plug in the USB cable to a dongle that's sitting on my desk. That would all make it like really like accessible to me, right? If I just, all I have to do is plug in the headset, that's it. I can just let it go. So like Half-Life Alyx, if I can play that sitting down, I probably will.
Well, Russ, you played it for 20 minutes. Did it seem like that's the kind of game that you could just sit on your ass while you're playing, or because I was playing, I can't remember what the name of it, Light Brigade, which is amazing on PSVR 2. If you don't have it, pick it up. But I was playing Light Brigade, and like I didn't feel like I could really play it sitting down. I needed to be able to stand up and not really move around too much, but more than I wanted to. Thank you.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I'm not a huge VR expert in terms of settings and whatnot, but I did try it sitting down first, and I was like like it didn't calibrate correctly or whatever, but it was too low. And so I'm like looking up at everyone and I'm like, why am I sitting down and everyone else is standing, you know? So I just went and I stood up and you know, I'm sure I could have recalibrated or something, but it did feel like a game I needed to stand up for. But I feel that way with all VR games. Like I tried a couple, like there was like this one that came pre-packaged with my Quest. It was like this Norse game. And I'm playing it and I'm sitting at my desk and I'm playing it and I'm like smacking things in real life when I'm like trying to swing my sword, you know, because I didn't have enough space or whatever. And so that made me realize it's like I'm getting too immersed in this that I don't know where I am physically. And so that's when I realized I have to make space for myself for this, just so I can get that full experience, like full VR thing where you really are in a new world. The whole lawnmower man thing, like it's pretty it's pretty incredible when it happens, you know, but it's just not something that's super high on my priority list.
Yeah, I mean, for the people who are watching on YouTube, you can see the room that I'm in. I'm in an attic, so I have like slanted ceilings, and so like when I haven't tried it because I rearranged my studio, but when I tried it the first time, this ceiling right here, I smacked with my right hand quite a few times because I was facing that way, and I would do something and I would hit the ceiling, and then it would take me out of the game. It would break my immersion. And then I had to like turn off the screen and like do the pass through and look at my controller and make sure that I hadn't broken it or anything like that. And it's just, I personally don't have a very good setup, especially on PSVR 2, because my like it's a wired thing. So you like, if I had like a MetaQuest 3, I could go down to like our home gym, because it's got a big open area, and just pick up the weight bench and put it on the treadmill or something so it's out of the way. And then I could flail around like a moron all I wanted. But up here where my PlayStation is, just not really an option.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that Valve is barking up the wrong tree? Like, I mean, the number of people who want to put a thing on their face.
You got to remember,
think
this is Gabe Newell, who on the side of Valve has a company for like neurotransmitters, right? Like he's all in on this like virtual future.
Yeah, the thing is, everyone else needs to be all in. You know what I mean? Like the whole scene needs to be all in, like developers and publishers and it's like 3D TVs all over again. They are cool. I did have a 3D TV. We used to watch Avatar on it, whatever. It's cool, you know. It did not pick up and or catch on. And so same thing here. Like it is the future for those who believe it's the future.
Yeah. All right. And I think that you can serve a small segment of the gaming population in that way. And if that's your goal, that's fine. The thing that I took away from this patent was this seems really good for things that are VR, but it also seems useful for things that are not VR. So maybe in the future, Valve could, in addition to a Steam Deck 2, they could also sell essentially a PlayStation Portal, but it's a Steam Deck that has a bigger screen that's higher resolution, and then they just wirelessly send that from your for like a couple $100 or maybe $150 or something like that, and then they're just wirelessly transmitting that from your big beefy computer. Again, a very small segment of the population will actually use something like that, but if the tech is there, you don't have to have just that device in order to do it. Although right now you could do that on an 800p screen easily. You know what I mean? Yeah. You were going to jump in there, Rich?
Yeah. I didn't follow up on this, but did you guys see that there is a Switch rumor that the Switch 2 dock will allow for wireless connectivity? So this makes me think of that. Imagine a wireless Steam Link kind of thing that works with Steam Deck, where you just kind of quote unquote dock it that way. Maybe it works with virtual reality in the future, that sort of thing. That would be interesting.
Like the Wii U, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Just hopefully a little you can get a little further away.
Yeah. And well, the thing about the Wii U, right? It's wireless, but it is tethered to the console. The handheld is tethered to the console. You can't just use the handheld independent of the console. So I think the Switch 2 is sort of the opposite of that, right? Like it's wireless, but you can play it, you can take it with you, that sort of thing.
But that would mean the dock needs to have its own processing power, right? Like
yes.
Because right now the dock is just a conduit, and so that would complicate things. But
agreed.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I also saw rumors that there was like something about like it was going to have 2 fans in it, and it was going to have a 60-watt charger.
Yeah.
Excuse me, a 60-watt charger. Like, it's just lots of rumors going around right now about that stuff.
A whole lot. Yeah.
Do you guys think that we see the do you think they just hit the anniversary for the Switch 2 release?
It's Nintendo, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're impossible to predict.
Exactly. My answer, I would have thought it'd be here by now, to be honest. Like, I thought it'd be here for holiday of 2024. So, I don't know. Who knows?
It still could.
Is that what people are still thinking, that it's going to come out this holiday? Like, I'm not following. So
I think at this point, everybody seems to think 2025 or like that. What Bill said, like anniversary of Switch 1, like that April-ish time frame seems to be what people are landing on. But I certainly, if I were a betting man and I were to bet early this year, I would have bet holiday 2024. But yeah, it doesn't seem like that right now.
I would have as well. Like I think you and I are in good company that most people would have made that bet.
Yeah.
And I think that Nintendo is just, I think that when the Wii U failed, and it failed spectacularly, and you're talking to somebody who loved the Wii U, when that thing failed, Nintendo just said, okay, all the games that we've been working on, we're just going to keep working on those, and we'll launch them on the Switch so that we get that ridiculous banger after banger after banger in the first year. And that's what they did with the Switch. The Switch came out. It came out with 7 games, one of them Zelda. So like that was the one game system like that you mentioned earlier, Rich. But then it was every single month Nintendo launched a fantastic game. There was Splatoon 2, there was the new Mario Kart, there was ARMS, which nobody played, and that's bad because that game is amazing. It's so fun.
Yeah.
There was then Mario Odyssey, and it was just game and Smash, and just game after game after game in that first year. And I think that that's what Nintendo is doing, which is why we don't have the Nintendo Switch 2, or I'm going to bring Carrie here for a second, the Super Switch.
Yeah.
I think that Nintendo is making sure that they have that lineup for that first year, and that's what we'll end up seeing. But it's just going to take quite a bit of time for them to get all those ducks in a row. Plus, the pandemic made things get delayed. So
yeah,
I think that there's a lot of that.
Yeah,
it's the whole, like, I skipped like all the Wii U stuff, like no idea about it, and then when the Switch came out, got it for the kids.
So did everyone else.
Yeah, right. They only sold 14 million copies.
And so all these games were coming out, the ones you're talking about, right? Like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And I remember people like poo-pooing on it and be like, oh yeah, well that's just a port of the Wii U game. And I'm like, does it matter? Like, it is an amazing game. Like, who cares that it was on the Wii U as well? Like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. My son loved that game,
Yeah, good game.
Yeah, like it was totally a super smart thing to do. And I honestly, if the Switch 2 comes out with games that are like that again, like they late cycle Switch games or whatever happens to be, and they put them on the Switch 2 as well, that'd be amazing. Like, I think it'd be just fine. I don't know. I don't have any issues with that kind of stuff. An upgraded Tears of the Kingdom, do it.
Yeah. Just to put it in context, the Wii U sold 14.7 million units worldwide lifetime, right? Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold 62 million units as of March 31st this year. 62 million units compared to like just nobody played. Like that's why we got so many Switch ports, is because nobody played those.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do hope for like backwards compatibility so that we don't have to rebuy a bunch of games. But for some of those games, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe specifically, they did a lot, right? Like they did a lot to include and add more content to that game. Maybe not on launch, but over the years they've added a lot of content to that game for sure.
Yeah, they have. And when it launched on the Switch, it came with all of the DLC as well.
Yes.
That was in the original one. I did see at some point, I don't remember, I don't have the article in front of me, but I did see like there was a leak, yet another Switch leak that about the cartridge, that it made it seem like it was a backwards compatible thing. And we've seen that before with the DS and the 3DS. Like the 3DS you could put the DS cartridges in there, but you couldn't do it the other way because there was like a little plastic tab, kind of like if you're old like me, it had like kind of like when you would put tape over
a cassette.
A cassette, thank you. I couldn't even think of the word because it's been so long. You could put tape over a cassette so you could record it on it if you wanted. Anyway, that wasn't even in the show notes. We were just kind of throwing that out there. But what is in the show notes is earlier, Rich, you had your, I don't know if it's a hot take or not about God of War, but we got God of War Ragnarok PC system requirements. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, it's a little bit bittersweet, right? So the system requirements look great. It's a little bit expected because God of War, it seems to be pretty much the same engine as God of War 2018. So and Ragnarok runs well on a PS4. So the minimum for the GPU is GTX 1060. The minimum for CPU is an i5 4670K. RAM is 8 gigabytes, and that'll play like 1080p, 30 FPS average, low settings, and that's all native resolution. So if you're using FSR, XeSS, you should get even better performance than that. So that should mean that on a PC handheld like the Steam Deck or ROG Ally, it should play pretty well. I say bittersweet because right now, the more time goes on with no one saying anything, the more I am the more I'm believing that this will not play well. This will not be compatible on Linux. So I think at this point that the PlayStation overlay, their PSN account linking, all of that, like I don't think they have any intention to make that compatible on Linux. And the fact that Valve is silent and hasn't addressed this as well means to me that they cannot address this, right? Like it's not like the EA app where they can just put out a Proton fix and no big deal. It's all good. I don't think that they can fix this at this point. I think God of War Ragnarok is going to be the test. I see you scrunching your face. The reason I think they can't address it, if I had to speculate, if I have to put my speculation hat on, it's probably kernel level anti-tampering for trophies. Like, you know how easy it is to get a Steam achievement, right? Like you just load up Steam Achievement Manager and you push a button and you can start getting all the Steam achievements for a particular game. Know this.
That's funny.
It's so easy. So that's how easy it is to get an achievement for Steam. And if there was no sort of anti-tampering, I don't know if it has to be kernel level, but if there was no level of anti-tampering, then it would probably be the same for PS trophies on PC. That's my best guess.
Well, that sucks.
It does.
That sucks a lot.
Yep.
Of course, if that's the case, I guess then you would get it on PC and run it on your Windows system and stream it via a Steam Remote Play, I guess, to your Steam Deck or you know whatever handheld device you have, because it works on all of them. Actually,
yeah, I still have my Windows partition on on Ally X, and that's exactly what I'm going to use it for. Like, I don't play anti-cheat games very much, so yeah, it's probably going to be reserved for Sony ports.
Man, come on, Sony, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's really divisive. That's kind of a pain. That sucks. You know, it's amazing. Like, I love the God of War franchise, probably one of my all-time favorites, and I don't have a lot of desire to play this because I did everything on the PS5 already, you know, when it first came out. I haven't gotten to the DLC yet. I opened up the game the other day on my home console, and I just started up, and I was like, there's not a lot to do. Like, I actually did all the things I wanted to already, you know, and so the fact that there's no cross saves, like I've mentioned many times on this show, is like, it's just a pain because I don't know if I want to start over from scratch. I'd love New Game Plus, you know, something like that, but I don't want to do it all over from the beginning.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not really the audience. I didn't play the first God of War, and I didn't pick up Ragnarok. My son loved the God of War and God of War Ragnarok. He played those on PlayStation. But honestly, like those games are so pretty. I would want to play them on a bigger screen anyway. So I would like if I'm going to pick it up on PC, then I'll just play it on my TV instead of on the Steam Deck or the ROG Ally with Bazite, which is I'm still rocking that. But it sucks that because there's going to be games that Sony's going to bring to PC, and I'm going to want to play them on my PlayStation. This just isn't one of them. And I think if this is the case for God of War Ragnarok, like one of their biggest games, it's probably going to be the case for every single one of their games moving forward, because they're trying to get people into that, like locked in to that ecosystem, which is the same thing everybody always tries to do. They try and get people into the ecosystem, and this is Sony's way of doing that. Like, I guarantee if this is the case, they'll see a big jump in the number of people who are signing up for the PlayStation app or whatever it's called. I can't remember now. Overlay, the PlayStation overlay, and they'll have an investors meeting, and they'll be like, we have, our accounts tripled or some crazy thing, and it's going to be because of this. And that means that they can advertise to those people. They can say, by the way, you really like God of War Ragnarok? Well, guess what? We're going to put this out now. And then when you go to launch your game, you're going to have that little advertisement so that they can talk directly to their customers. I understand why they do it. I just think it sucks.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see, every business decision is going to come with some sort of loss that they're accepting, right? And so they are probably in making a decision like this. They're like, okay, we are losing out on a segment of the PC audience who are just not going to buy the game because they can't play it on their preferred platform. And whether or not the amount of increase that they get in whatever subscriptions to this, PlayStation service and all of the revenue that they get from that, whether or not it offsets it, or if it turns the tide where there's enough people who just turn against this whole thing, where it becomes a Helldivers 2 situation where social media just blows up and they have to do something about it, And so I will be interested to just kind of watch and see how this all unfolds. If this is the litmus test, like what are gamers going to tolerate? And spoiler alert, gamers don't tolerate a lot. And so we'll see how this all falls out. You know what I mean?
I disagree. I think gamers, like, I saw somebody had posted on Threads just the other day. They said why they were talking about like the pricing structure of Star Wars. What's the new Star Wars game called?
Outlaws,
thank you. And they were like, I got to pay extra to get this Jabba the Hutt scene or whatever. And they're like, why do they do this? And my answer was, because we let them. Like they keep doing this kind of stuff, and we just keep pre-ordering their goddamn games. We keep buying their stuff over and over and over. And they're like, well, I mean, we complain about it, but we don't vote with our wallets. Not enough of us vote with our wallets. And I'm guilty of the same thing too. I've bought games that do things that I'm not happy about because I want to play that game. I think that we put up with a lot.
Yeah, I think I've always been critical of like the vote with our wallets like sentiment. But the reason I bring this up now is because we have like the stop killing games movement, right? And that has its own like problems that Thor from what's the name of his channel? Pirate Games, something like that. Thor went into the problems with the Stop Killing Games but movement, let's say. I know it's they are trying to get like 1 million signatures, and this is for the EU, and they're trying to like start an initiative that turns into a law. And like I said, there do seem to be some problems with that. But I think that sort of approach, right, where you vie for regulation and you vie for like laws and things to change things, I think that's the right approach, because I think you're right when you talk about like voting with your wallet. That's asking for people to make an individual like change, where some like there's just too much friction with that in terms of like every individual is going to have different priorities, right? But like if you can sort of collectively agree on what are the things that we want to stop, that can be a good starting point.
Well, speaking of What was the thing about God of War that we were just talking about? Oh, system requirements. Speaking of
Yes.
system requirements, we also have the system requirements for Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2, and the system requirements are looking pretty steep. You want to talk about that, Rich, since you added it to the show notes?
The GPU is similar to God of War Ragnarok, right? I think it's 1060, GTX 1060. Where it gets steep is the CPU, which is asking for, what is it, i5? I don't have it up now, but I think it's i5
8600K.
8600K. And then the tricky part is the RAM. So 8 gigabytes of RAM and 6 gigabytes of VRAM. For the Steam Deck specifically, that is bumping right up against the 16 gigabytes RAM. And you know, there may be some paging, things like that, but once you start saturating the memory, you're going to get game crashes on the Steam Deck. It's happened on No Rest for the Wicked. It's happened on actually Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. If you're using the Ultra preset, you will run out of memory. So that is my big concern for this game. The CPU and the GPU, like the CPU is more demanding than Ragnarok, but I think this looks, other than the RAM, it looks relatively playable on a PC handheld.
Well, you know, I remember when we first saw the stats for the ROG Ally X, it has 24 gigs of RAM. And one of the things that I think it was either Russ or Rich, I think it was Russ, that said, you know, you were talking about Hellblade 2. And you're like, oh, Hellblade 2 is going to be able to run much better on the Ally X because you can dedicate 8 gigs of RAM to the GPU, and you can have 16 gigs of RAM for the CPU, which you can't do that kind of thing on the Steam Deck. So this is the kind of game that's like on the Steam Deck. You said it'll probably crash because it'll, you know, hit the ceiling, hit the ceiling for RAM. Probably will run fine on the ROG Ally X, right?
Yep, I think so. I know that article I linked from Windows Central, they seem a little more doubtful that it's going to run on, especially on Steam Deck, because of GPU power. But again, I think the GPU requirement there that they've listed is not that high. And I'm also assuming that this is native resolution, right? So again, we can do better with FSR and with XeSS. So I think it'll be playable on the Ally and the Ally X, and I think it'll struggle, but it should get there with the Steam Deck. That's my initial thought.
Yeah, I wonder though, because
Go
the
ahead.
minimum specs are 1080p 30 frames, and so if 800p will just kind of have lower system demands, and so as a result, maybe Steam Deck will be locked in. But it is pretty high for minimum requirements here. We're not even talking about the recommended stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, you alluded to this earlier on in the show, Rich. You talked about, you know, Valve has a lot of plates spinning right now. And one of those plates is possibly Half-Life 3. I made a video about this because I am a huge fan of Half-Life. I still remember, I still haven't played Half-Life Alyx because I don't have a compatible VR system. I can't wait to find out, Rich, how the PSVR 2 plays that with the little thing, and then I might buy that. But it looks like they might be making a new Half-Life game. So first off, my question, do you think, Rich, that this is that we're actually getting a new Half-Life game, or is it just a lot of nonsense?
I think that so a little context, which you explained in your video, but helpful for the listeners now, is that this is coming from the resume of a voice actor, right? So the voice actor, this initially came from understanding that a voice actor has provided work for a project called Project White Sands, which turns out to be Half-Life 3. So to the end that Valve is working on Half-Life 3, I believe that, absolutely. To the end of, we will see that in whatever, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. I who knows? Like, even the fact that normally the fact that there are voice actors involved kind of feels like it's a little later in the process. Like we're certainly past pre-production. We're in production. You would think they're late in production. But again, it's Valve. I don't know. I also don't know, like, what if this turns into like, what's the Steam Deck game that they made? Aperture Desk Job. What if this just turns into like Aperture Desktop Desk Job 2, right? Like Black Mesa Desk Job. I don't know. So
now I'm mad.
And there's a Zen gorilla in Black Mesa Desk Job. So we have precious little to go on. Actually, like, so this. A lot of this also came specifically from Tyler McVicker, right? Like his YouTube video. And that video blew up so much so that he was worried about publishing a follow-up video, right? Like he was like, am I killing the momentum if I do a follow-up video? Because I have more information, but I don't want to kill the momentum of that video. I looked on his channel and he hasn't published a video since that video. So maybe we'll hear more when he's ready to publish whatever that follow-up video is.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Russ, you're shaking your head.
I am.
I want to hear.
So
tell me why.
Half-Life 3 is in the same bucket as Winds of Winter from George R.R. Martin and Doors of Stone from Patrick Rothfuss. These are all like books and things that have been promised for decades at this point, or at least a decade. I'm not paying attention anymore. I'm not getting my hopes up. Like the cliffhanger of episode 2 of Half-Life 2 still sits with me, and I still get this uneasy feeling that like I haven't been able to complete that story, But some part of me also just wants to wonder. Like I don't even want to see it. It's like when I was a child, I used to wonder, how did Darth Vader come to be? And then we got it, and I wish we didn't. You know what I mean? I wish I had spent my life wondering how Darth Vader came to be, as opposed to seeing the prequel trilogy. And so part of me is like, I just don't want to see it. Like we'll see. Like I don't want to get my hopes up. No expectations. Half-Life 3, and Portal 3 could be an option as well. But honestly, until we started hearing some of this stuff, I didn't even know that Portal 3 was something that people were wanting or thinking was going to happen. And so it's always been Half-Life 3 for me, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. Too bitter.
I can see that. I can imagine
Russ
that.
is kind of jumping ahead to the next thing. I was looking at this and I was like, I wonder what people would actually want to see more. Would it be Half-Life 3 or Portal 3? Not which do you think is most likely, but which one would you personally prefer? And I'm just curious. So Russ has already told us he wants Half-Life 3. It surprises him that Portal 3 is even in contention. Rich, which one would you like to see more?
This is impossible for me. I guess I would go with Half-Life 3. I haven't finished so obviously I haven't played Half-Life Alyx, so I haven't finished like the Half-Life series yet. So maybe I'll feel more strongly about this once I finish. But I'm not like a big lore narrative story person. So that's a bit of a blind spot for me, but Half-Life is one of those series where I do actually really enjoy the lore. I do enjoy the story, so I get into it. But Portal just tickles all of my puzzle solving, all of that stuff. I love that stuff. But I'm still going to stick to Half-Life 3. I think would be the one I want more.
So one thing that I just realized is a lot of people, when I made my video about Half-Life 3, a lot of people, because I had the same reaction as Russ. I haven't played Half-Life Alyx, so for me, the Half-Life story has stopped at that goddamn cliffhanger at the end of Half-Life 2 episode 2. And that cliffhanger, I won't spoil it for anybody. Like, I was just like, oh my God, I cannot believe what just happened. I need to know what happens next in the story. And for some reason, I always thought that Half-Life Alyx was a prequel. But apparently, a lot of people replied in the comments that that cliffhanger gets resolved in Half-Life Alyx, which I have no idea.
I want to fire it up.
Right, same. That's why I can't wait for Rich to say, yeah, go buy that $60 adapter for your PSVR 2 so you can play Half-Life Alyx, because as somebody who played bought a Steam controller and connected it to a Mac, and it there was some issue or whatever, I'm sorry, Valve gave everybody who did that access to every game that they make forever. Like all of their games. Like I never bought Half-Life Alyx. It's in my library. It's just sitting there, and I don't have a PC VR headset to connect it to.
I don't understand why you wouldn't just go buy the dongle right now.
Yeah, it's $60. You got a free game.
$60. It's no big deal. Just go get it.
Well, because I didn't know the dongle was out until I saw you mention that you had bought it. So
I what's weird is I went to look for it because I wanted to just get it and do it the same day. So I looked on like Target, I looked on Best Buy, and I didn't see it. So I was like, did they delay this or something? And I still don't know if they're selling it in stores. I didn't look physically in stores. I just looked online on those store sites, and I didn't see it. But anyway, I ordered it on like PlayStation Direct, so and it ships pretty quickly. Also, I was going to say, apparently someone on your Discord, by the way, Bill, they said they've connected it using just the USB-C cable. So connected it directly to the motherboard, and they've gotten it to work. So you may want to look that conversation up if you want to avoid getting the dongle thing.
That's very interesting. Well, because all I had, like, my computer, not good enough for that. But I do have a laptop that like, my desktop computer, not good enough for that. But I do have a laptop, but I don't know if it'll hook up to a laptop because I haven't really done any research into this dongle. All I know is that it doesn't support foveated rendering, which is one of the best things about the PSVR 2 because it lowers how much your system has to do in order to make your games look really good. But I don't know. I may end up buying that thing. I'll just wait until Rich says something. I've been waiting this long to play Half-Life Alyx. I can wait a couple more days.
Yeah.
You sound like me with Sega Saturn emulation. I'm always like, I've been waiting 30 years to play this. I can wait until the frames are like higher, you know. So, no
How
rush.
high do the frames need to get for you, Russ? That's the question.
What game?
I don't know. Like, so I look at Sega Rally Championship as like my go-to because that one will, most of the emulators have auto frame skips. You'll watch it dip down and it won't actually be any tangible slowdown. But so I don't know why, but Sega Saturn is like one of those purist consoles where I'm like, no, it's got to be perfect. Like I wanted to play this when I was 12 and it's got to be perfect now. Like it's the only thing that can be, and so, I've never really hit that. You can do it on high-end, devices and stuff, but I don't know. I just never had that pure Saturn experience just yet. And I don't think I ever will attain it. It's just like the 12-year-old expectations of me.
Buy a Saturn.
What?
Right. Who would do that? Yeah.
I know they're actually super cheap in Japan. Like they were like $30 for a Saturn, and I should have picked one up, but it obviously would have been Japanese region and all that other crap. So
to be fair, the superior version, right? Like that's the version. Well, I say this as a big 2D fighting game fan, right? Like they had like these 2D fighting games with like the RAM cartridge or whatever cartridge, so you would put in the cartridge and the CD, and it was great.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm holding out hope that Sega will put out like more mini consoles. Like we got 2 Genesis consoles. I want to see Saturn. I want to see Dreamcast mini consoles that have all of that, like some of the best games on there, because those things are really cool. In fact, when I was redoing my studio, I have an entire tote just filled with like Commodore 64 Mini, Super Nintendo Mini, all that stuff, just boxes and the consoles and stuff in there. I want Sega to keep putting those out. Do you guys think that those are over, or that we won't see any more like mini consoles ever again?
I think they're effectively over. Yeah,
that's too bad.
Yeah,
I think we'll see them, but it won't be for a while. Like in 10 years, it'll be a new generation of people. Be like, oh my gosh, look at this. You know what I mean? And so it might be mini PS2, mini Dreamcast at that point too.
Yeah. And the thing about like, let's say Dreamcast, for example, right? Like, the mini consoles, as you know, they're not like Magic, right? Like they're just some circuit board that just runs an emulator. And so like the thing is, Dreamcast emulation is nowhere near. It's really good, but it's still nowhere near where like Super Nintendo emulation was when the mini Super Nintendo was released. So like, for example, the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, it's emulating I think the arcade version of every game that's in that collection. Out? Not yet.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
But I've been watching previews of it like crazy.
Yeah.
I think it's emulating the arcade version of every game except Marvel vs. Capcom 2, where it's, I think, emulating the Dreamcast version, which, by the way, is basically the same hardware, right? It's like Naomi Dreamcast. But yeah, so like every version of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has been not good other than the Dreamcast version. So they're just trying to get as close to that as possible. And there's still like a little more input lag apparently, but they're getting closer.
Man, I can't wait for that game.
Yeah, me too.
We did have somebody emailed us. If you want to email the show, you can email nerdnestpod@gmail.com. And this question came in and they said, if I can bring it up on screen, I clicked the wrong thing. They said, hey guys, when I was listening to your most recent episode, this is a while ago, I just hadn't had a chance to put it in the show. An idea popped into my head. Do you think we'll ever get emulation consoles focusing on pre-existing consoles? Xbox 360, for example, that will have a disk drive that can read the original games. I know emulation for the latter consoles are still early days, but I'd love to buy an emulation console that can read the games that I own and output them to my 4K TV. Do you think we could ever see that, or is this a licensing nightmare? I know that consoles have released previously for cartridge-based systems, but for someone like me, my game collection is primarily PS2, Xbox, and 360 games. So what I'd like to see is a new console that doesn't come preloaded with ROMs, but just reads the discs that I already own. I hope that makes sense. Would love to hear your thoughts. Lewis from the UK. So first off, Lewis, thank you so much for sending in the email. And yeah, he's right. We have like these systems out there that you can buy that just are like, you could just slap your cartridges in and play your old games. And that's awesome. But that doesn't exist for discs. Russ, do you think that that's something that, like, I don't think do you have to worry about licensing for something like that?
I think
there's no ROMs.
Yeah, but they're bypassing encryption, which with disk-based systems, they almost all have encryption, BIOS and whatnot. And so I think legally in the US, I don't think it's possible for them to do that unless they get permission from each of the companies saying, hey, Sony, hey, Sega and Microsoft, can we do this? Let us do this thing. And I'm assuming they'll say no. I think at that point, and I'd love to hear Rich's take on this too, but I think the most viable thing is that Xbox or Microsoft makes an Xbox, and that Xbox has a bunch of processors inside of it, and you can play OG Xbox games and 360 games, and it's just like a novelty thing. It's not the latest console, it's the classic like console, throwback console or whatever. I'd love to see something like that. I'd love to see a PlayStation like that can play PS3 and PS2 games on it, you know what I mean? And just throw those processors natively in it, like a Poly Mega, but for each of those companies. That would be awesome, and I'd definitely pay my $400 or whatever that would be to have that native experience, without having to rely on emulation and stuff like that. I don't know if the companies are thinking about that kind of stuff, but I'm available for hire if they want to. I'll be the CEO of that little branch. Yep, totally.
Good point on the Xbox, right? But does Xbox already do that to a degree? So like if I buy an Xbox Series X, how far back can I go in terms of just putting in a disc? I can play 360 games, can't I?
I think it depends on the game.
It depends on the game, and it's just running backwards compatibility and checking that you own the game. That's all it's doing. And so it's not the same as like running it natively or whatever. But yeah, there's still, the list is great. I don't want to poo-poo on like, I think I've said that twice in this episode. I don't want to dump on like Microsoft doing backwards compatibilities when one of the greatest things that I think they've ever done, starting with the 360, when they introduced that with the original Xbox, I thought it was amazing then. I still think it's amazing that they keep up with it. But that's not the same as just like throw all the processors in one and let us sort it out. You know what I mean?
No, that's fair. That's fair. And I wonder how even they would do that, right? Like, would they build like a bunch of FPGAs for like each of the processors that are there, whether it's like the CPU, GPU, all of that stuff? That sounds like a lot and probably not enough like benefit in terms of like the people that would buy it. And nobody's going to buy any video games for it, right? Because if you're going to do that, then you will have to readdress the licensing for each of those. Like, how do you publish new versions of old games, all of that. So definitely difficult. I think Microsoft, you're right. Microsoft would be the one, right? Like to figure this out. They still seem to have good relationships with the folks, because I think they are building licensing relationships for like long term. I think that they would have to for stuff like this where they sell it on the store still. Some of them I think are being sold in the store. So that's interesting too. But yeah, I think that's the best it can get, is probably with like Microsoft, really, like you said, a poly mega console.
Right.
Yeah.
It kind of undercuts all the work they've been doing anyway. Like, it's like, what is the difference between saying, oh, I need to play Jade Empire on the original like disc, you know what I mean, as opposed to like all the things that they've done to make it backwards compatible, available on PC, all those things that are amazing. We've got enough that this is a little bit too much of an ask, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
But not only that, but the reliability is going to be way lower than cartridge-based systems, because discs, like, you get disc rot, number one. I mean, what was it, the 360 that was notorious for scratching the hell out of your discs, or was it the original
if you, like,
Xbox?
Moved it, like I think maybe, I don't know if it was when the game, but if you played it vertically or horizontally, one of those was worse for the disc. I can't remember.
I think it was vertical. Yeah, I seem to remember that.
Yeah, so like, I think that it works really well when it comes to cartridges, but discs are so finicky and crappy that I just don't think it's going to hold up very well. And I just don't see where the motivation is for Microsoft or Sony to, or any other company to do something like that. Because if they did, I mean, I'm buying used games to put in this thing. They're not going to make any money on the games. And the amount of money that they would make on selling this piece of hardware would be limited at best, just because, you know, a lot of research and development would go into putting it all together. So I don't see them ever doing that kind of thing. But if somebody could make something and then just sell it without any BIOS and just have a USB port on it, so you can put a USB port, import your own BIOS, and then put your discs in, cool. But I don't see I don't see Xbox ever doing something like that, because then they can't just sell you the games.
Yeah. It would be a very boutique thing. Like, I like that idea of load your own BIOS kind of thing, but the people creating that would have to know and like wink what they're doing, you know what I mean? And I don't know, like, it seems like something Analog would do, but I don't want to buy anything from them. And so some other company that does that kind of thing would be pretty awesome. But that's a lot of work up front. I don't know. I'd buy one.
Yeah. So real quick, I had I posted earlier today. I said, hey, what do you guys want to hear us talk about? And one person asked about the Bazite on the ROG Ally X. And so all three of us are running Bazite on our ROG Ally X. Rich, what percent of your time would you say that you're spending on the Steam Deck versus your Ally X at this point, since now it's essentially the same experience without trackpads?
Yeah, at this point it's 100% on the Ally X with Bazite. The tiny exception is that I was working on like a games on deck video, and it just makes more sense if I'm talking about like the performance, to just focus on the Steam Deck for performance. So I'm recording some footage for that. But outside of that, it's all Bazite Ally X. What about
you, Russ?
It's probably 100% Ally X right now. I still pick up the thing that happens to me is I keep playing it, and I'm switching between Bazite and Windows, mostly on Bazite Windows for Destiny 2 kind of thing, and I enjoy it every single time. I'm like, this is it. This is peak handheld gaming right now. Like, I can dual boot. I've got everything I want. 1080p screen, variable refresh rate. All of this is working out great. Feels comfortable. And then I pick up the Steam Deck and I'm like, this thing is so much better. Like, every time, it's just the comfort for me. It's just like, I can't get over that. And so, I was this week, I was trying to decide what video I was going to make. And one of the videos, I was like, you know what, let's make an Ally X versus Steam Deck video and let's just hash it out right now, But I realized, I'm like, no, I can't make a right decision right now until we get some sort of kill switch like grip for the Ally X. And once we have that, then I'm ready to just throw in the towel and say Ally X. But as it stands right now, I can't give up on my Steam Deck because of the comfort aspect, because it is just so much more comfortable for me.
So do you have a kill switch on your Ally?
I have the old kill switch, like the old Ally kill switch. I have it in the box. I've never used it. I don't mind. it's so lightweight. I don't mind it with the just using it naked with the regular Ally. But the Ally X, just the grips and the overall weight and feel of it, it's just not as comfortable to me. And so I need heftier grips, I think, just to be able to manage it. I don't want to make it heavier, but I can't see any other way of making it more comfortable.
Yeah, I'm not nearly as tilted as you guys, but I'm gonna say I'm probably 80% on the Ally X right now. But just like Russ, every single time I pick up the Steam Deck, I'm like, oh, this is so much more comfortable to hold. It's not as powerful, and the screen doesn't go up to 120 hertz or whatever, and it's not variable refresh rate, but it is so much more comfortable to hold, and that's the differentiating factor right there. The reason that right now I'm using the Ally X probably more than the Steam Deck is just simply because I have way more storage, because I have 4 terabytes on the Ally X, and I have 1 terabyte plus whatever my SD card is, I can't remember, on the Steam Deck. But like, it makes me really, really want to have like a massive 2230 M.2 drive for the Steam Deck, but it's like those are so much more expensive than the 2280 drives are, just because they're so much smaller. But it's a good problem to have. There's so, like,
For sure.
If you buy either one, you're going to have a fantastic experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like with the Ally X, I'm like, okay, like this is just such an easy recommendation. Yeah, the Steam Deck feels better, but I am just so picky about that stuff, and a lot of people aren't, and so I totally understand that. And yeah, I think the Ally X is crazy, it's just the price and then that comfort thing are just the kind of two little things holding me back. And one of those, well, really both of those could be fixed in the future. We'll see.
I am looking forward to, I think this is the one video for whichever one you do.
No,
yeah,
you're right.
I'm looking forward to it too, because I want to put it to bed.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you just did that for this, right? For
SP.
The SP.
Yeah. And that is I mean, in terms of just small retro handhelds, under $100, like I just can't see anything else right now being like an easier pick up and play experience for me. And it's just so seamless, especially when I had like the operating system set up on it and everything going on. And so, yeah, it's just so good. It's a very opinionated video, me just being very subjective about it. But man, that SP really is hitting everything for me right now.
Yeah, it's a really good system. I ended up, I watched your guide and I installed something. I can't remember what it's called. MinUI? No, Mustard UI? MuOS, yeah. I ended up installing that on here the other day. So I just loved it. I'm with you. This thing is just really, really good. I love the form factor. What I really hope, and I didn't plan on talking about this, I want Ambernick to make another. And I want it to be a 4-inch screen instead of a 3-inch screen, but this form factor, that I think would be really, really cool. But that's going to do it for this episode of the NerdNest podcast. Russ, what's your next video that you're trying as hard as you can to get caught up on?
Actually, I'm in a lull right now because I just released a sync thing video today that took me several days to get set up. And so now I need like a rest day. And then I don't know, I'm going to tackle whatever tomorrow. I've got a couple of mini PCs I need to review. And I was thinking about re-reviewing the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, which is one that I just don't talk about that much, but I've been using it in a lot of my demonstrations lately. And that is the best $200 device right now. It's in a different category than the SP. This is like...
Yeah.
More expensive, but it can play every GameCube and PS2 game and most lightweight Switch games and stuff too. And so I've just really been enjoying that handheld. So I might just take a new look at it. It's been about 8 months since it released.
What about you, Rich?
New news video coming soon, so that should be out tomorrow or Tuesday. So it'll be a lot of the topics we talked about today. So I'm talking about God of War Ragnarok, Space Marine 2, but I'm also talking about the Final Fantasy 16 rumors. So there's
what's that?
You got to watch my video.
Damn it.
No, there's a new like NVIDIA driver, game ready driver for FF16. So it may be imminent announcement anytime soon.
Oh, yep. Interesting. Go watch these guys' videos, subscribe to their channels. Rich is almost at 100,000. So you got to get down there, click on the subscribe button for him.
Yes,
but
please.
before you go, click on the subscribe button here too. And
That's right.
thank you guys for hanging out with us. You could have been anywhere for an hour and a half. You hung out with us for the NerdNest podcast, and I appreciate it. So I hope everybody stays rad. Until next time, bye-bye, everybody.